November 8th, 2024 meeting of the Nashville Fair Commissioners, Board of Fair Commissioners. Sorry about that. I will begin by reading the legal notice. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Board of Fair Commissioners today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the board's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact your own independent legal counsel. My name is Jasper Hendricks, and I call this meeting to order. Our first order of business today will be the approval of our minutes from the previous meeting. The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor of approving the minutes from our previous meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. So minutes are approved. Next, we will have a public comment period. Was there anyone who has signed up, anyone who would like to speak in the public comment period? Seeing none, let's move on to our monthly informational reports. We will begin by Campus Partners update, and let's start with the exciting Nashville Soccer Club. Thank you, Lindsay.
Afternoon. We are exciting, but unfortunately we are no longer, our season ends this Saturday. We're not in the playoffs for the first time, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but there's next year, so we're excited about that. And then on October 27th at 4:30, we're hosting the U.S. Women's National Team. They're playing Iceland, so that should be a great and exciting match. And they're also doing a retirement ceremony for Kelly O'Hara, she's one of the most iconic women's soccer players of current era. Did get the strategic plan survey. I know that Geodis Park and Nashville Soccer Club weren't specifically mentioned, but we're happy to share it with our database if that would be helpful. We've got a pretty large database, so we can send that out. I just didn't know if that would be okay.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Great. I don't have anything else other than that. Any questions?
Yes, do you have any information about 2025?
What kind of information?
FIFA.
Oh, right. You know, it's funny. I've been working on this contract for a very long time. And so when we announced it and I kept getting all these congratulation messages, I had no idea what they were for, but it was for the FIFA Club World Cup. So it just had forgotten my brain. We are hosting. We don't know how many matches we'll host. It'll be sometime in June. We could hold 1 to 3 matches. We don't know who it will be. The schedule should come out in December. But it is a really big deal, so we are excited about it. Yeah. I'm just glad the contract's done.
Congratulations. I actually was going to bring it up, so congratulations.
Glad you remembered. I'm sorry, I forgot. Right. Yeah, so.
Are there any questions?
Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Next, we'll have Scott to give us an update about the fair.
Well, we were very excited this year. It was definitely the best fair by far that we've produced here in the last 3 years. We've added a lot of new exhibits, expanded even this room here with our King of the Mountain Goat exhibit, our hands-on learning things for the kids in here. And then, of course, out in the courtyard, we added bounce houses for the kids, which were full pretty much every day that it was not raining. But it was an awesome fair. Exhibit-wise, as far as in the buildings, were full and much better. Seemed like the attendance in the buildings coming through was up a lot. We grew our email database, so that's up to almost 10,000. Started the fair a little bit over 5,000. Our social media numbers have grown, so we're very ecstatic about that. And of course, with the fair, 10 days, 7 days was great going into the fair. Attendance and everything was up just slightly. And then, of course, we had rain Thursday, Friday, and twice on Saturday. So we can't control Mother Nature, but a good thing about the fair, we had pretty much very minimal incidents, anything like that. So ride safety. Carnival was excellent this year as far as on that. As far as any other medical emergency, just some slight falls, things of that nature, nothing major to talk about. We are putting an RFP out for a new carnival. We did have a walkthrough last week. So we had two contractors that came in and did a site visit. So anyway, we'll proceed with that. So hopefully might get another one. You never know as far as a third. But we're excited, looking forward to next year. The mayor came out 3 times during the fair, which was very surprising. I mean, through the years, the only time I ever saw that was when I think Mayor Bredesen was running for governor. But that was really good. He came out for our opening ceremonies, of course, the dedication of the artwork, and then of course he came out with his family one night and enjoyed the fair. So it was a good time. And one of the main gauges that I could see as far as the fair attendees having a great time was you would see so many kids in the buildings playing here with armbands. Typically, when they get an armband, they're on the midway. But they were having so much fun. They were having longer stays and enjoying themselves. So that's a big thing. And I want to thank all the staff and all our volunteers and everybody, because without them, we could not do this. So.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
I have a couple of questions for you, Scott. But number one, I came with my family. It's a great event. Great job by the staff. I know it's a lot of work, but it's a great thing for the community. So thank you so much. Couple of questions. And if it's better to hit this in the budget section, we can. But I'm looking at the budget sheet, and maybe this is for Satrice, but like our expense line, we budgeted like 1.8, and we're only hitting 400K in expenses. Like, is everything not in yet, or is this pretty much rolled up the complete financials for the fair?
With the budget, we don't, how should I say, change our budget from year to year.
Okay.
Because if we did, it's harder to ask for money. So you kind of keep your budget where it is, even if you don't spend all of it, if that makes sense.
So we put in the budget we were going to make 600K in revenue and spend 1.8 in expenses, which is obviously not a good story, but we ended up, in reality, actually being net positive 80,000. I'm reading that right. Is that correct?
And to your question, no, all of the expenses have not hit yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we think we'll have it
But it will not be
1.8.
right.
It'll be somewhere between 600 and 1.8.
Yes.
All right, cool. Or 400 and 1.8. Mm-hmm. Well, then maybe we'll just wait that question once we get the full financials, but I do think it's good for us to model on closer to the actuals.
Mm-hmm. And that's at the bottom,
mm-hmm.
that shows you a better picture of actuals, whereas you're comparing the budget, which is a good tool, but at the bottom, the actual, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's okay, Jasper, I had a couple other questions.
Yes.
So again, like, that's a great job. I mean, obviously, when we look at the budget, it looked kind of rough, but now obviously we're much closer, so that's good.
Right.
So, what the carnival RFPs? Number one, that's great. Obviously, I think just refreshing your vendors is always good. Is there a specific reason that you were looking at to bring in a different carnival vendor, or what's the thoughts on that?
When we started the fair 3 years ago, they wanted to put the carnival out for an RFP then, and I had concerns and talked to Laura, and she was able to get procurement to do an emergency contract for 3 years, 1 years, so that we could have some history and data to be able to move forward to see, because we knew that our attendance, it was going to be hard starting over from scratch, not having a fair on the property in 2020 and 21. So we were technically starting over, and it worked out better that way now that we have some data.
And then I just have one other question. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Laura.
I just wanted to say, and with that RFP, we will be looking for a 5-year contract for some stability with the carnival and Midway.
Yeah, that's great. Last question I was going to bring up is the programming was really great this year. I thought a lot of great improvement from year over year. But one thing we talked about in passing, and I just wanted to bring it up, and Laura's going to hate me for it, but Laura never hates me for anything. She just rolls with it. But for us to think about big programming. So Scott kind of came to me, or we were talking just offhand at one time during the fair, and big programming is a big draw to draw attendance. So should we consider actually like programming another large event during the fair to drive attendance? And I'm thinking obviously of soccer. So Laura, what are your thoughts on that, or Scott?
Yes, I mean, one of the fairs, and I think we talked about, the Mississippi Valley Fair in Davenport, Iowa. Basically, they have a grandstand that seats around 7,000 folks. They sell 30,000 tickets. Their fair is a 6 or 7 day fair. Those tickets that they sell is a little over $100. It gets you in the fair and the music for all through the fair. So ultimately, those attendees, that's 300,000. In a 10-day event, that'd be 300,000 attendees. But ultimately, some events, nights, draw 7,000, 8,000. Some push up to 20. But they do a real good job at that fair with that type of programming, so that year in and year out, you're not having to worry about which A-listers to have and what touring acts and because people, it's more of a festival 10-day type thing tied into the fair, so that you can weather the storm a little bit with the entertainers.
Well, I guess I'm just thinking, and I think that's good. And you're the I mean, I agree with all that. That's really good, Scott. And y'all are thinking through it, and y'all are going to be the masters of the details. But if we can work the scheduling out, it just seems to me you're bringing 20, 30,000 people on campus. Mm-hmm. Even if we took no attendance money and they just bought F&B, you're going to make a huge, that's going to be a huge uplift on those days when that event occurs. So I'm struggling to see why we wouldn't want to ask if it's possible, and I can put Lizzie on the spot, but if it's possible to schedule that, or race too. The same idea. I don't know what others' thoughts are, though.
If I can jump in there, I would say...
hold on one second. I think Anthony had...
Yeah, I was just going to say, based on the RFP, how did the carnival walkthrough go this past week?
It went well. Both contractors have been here on site. One was our current contractor, and the other one had been here during the fair like last year, so they pretty much knew the layout. So it went well. We didn't have to go around and do a tour of the site, but they were very interested.
I'll ask a couple of questions, but just to finalize your thought, I was thinking we need to look for opportunities where this can be, it's in Music City, right? So kind of to your point is, sure, let's use the partnership with our attendants to probably find an opportunity like that, like an exhibition game or something like that would be great. But also we need to look for support from other music-related entities in town that this could be the best music festival that could be very affordable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And one of the things, another comment, and this is kudos to you guys, at least and I mentioned this to Laura a couple of weeks ago, in the Latino community, excellent reviews. 5 stars all throughout, right? Like, people incredibly happy. I think attendance from my community was much larger than ever before. And I think that we should keep building on that. So I'm going to get to my questions now. It's you mentioned it's the best year in the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. What made it better? You don't have to go to like painful detail, but a little bit on that. And how can we continue to improve things for next year?
Well, first, I would say awareness. Starting over from ground zero the first year, and then of course battling over. You just hear, I thought the fair moved to Lebanon. Anytime you mention a fair, there's a fair at the fairgrounds. So just bringing awareness, starting new traditions, making the event totally different than what was here before, making the experience different. And that's the thing about we have an opportunity with new buildings, a new footprint. There are some challenges, but with those challenges brings us a lot of opportunities to look at the guest experience. A lot of fairs across the nation want to get bigger, and that's a great thing. Growth is great, but you definitely don't want people to just come and stand in line. Everywhere they come is stand in line. Orange County Fair, for example, in California, they have limited their attendance. They cap it at 50,000, so they just shut the gates down. They pre-sale. They had, I think, 8 sellout days. I kind of foresee us having that in the future here. with this site, because it goes to say that, you know, when I travel and go to these events and fairs, when you just stand in line, it's not fun. Just that's all you know, standing from a food, a game, a ride. Families are not really having a good time. I don't really care if it's Disney World or any of those theme parks. The guest experience is very high on my book. So I think having that here, you know, as we grow, to keep that aware and first, that we want folks to be able to have a great experience. And I think as we grow, and safety is always a good thing. You know, that's always, this whole property has changed in the last 10, 15 years, and people feel much safer here than we did 15 years ago.
Thanks for that. One last point to comment, and this is definitely not for an answer today, but I do want us to, we have almost a year to think through this and I mean, just collaborating, how do we can get it better, is the looming question for me over the fairs. How do we close that gap on a loss, a deficit, whatever, right? And it's very much so asking for a wish list from you, because there's always the or at least where my mind goes to because of my work experiences, how do you optimize on the cutting cost side? But also I'm sure you have plenty of ideas and requests that it would be great to be kicking that can over and over again in the next few meetings. Because I think that if that's our biggest loss right now in different divisions within or potentially it could be, I don't think it should be, right? I think it should be a cash cow and not necessarily a problem from a finance perspective. So would love to hear if you can start working on
For sure.
on your letter to Santa Claus, if you will, and then we'll see what we can do. But I think the better that we articulate the opportunities and show that we are addressing the issues, that probably we're managing things a little bit better than before, I think we have a much better shot at getting more support, more dollars, better partnerships from externals and whatnot.
Yep, and you're absolutely right, because I think one of the biggest, the best ways that we can close the loophole, is capitalizing off of the sponsorships. And Laura was able to get legislation through council that will allow us to go after larger sponsorships. And so, yeah, I know you were joking about your letter to Santa Claus, but it's really going to have to be a letter to Santa Claus, because he's going to have to start writing letters now asking for sponsorships for next September. You know, and so it's going to have to, but it has to start now, not the next couple of months. It has to be now, so that they can get in these corporate budgets for that $50,000, you know, that we can go ahead and start asking Amazon, start asking Bridgestone, start asking Alliance Bernstein, start asking all these major corporations that are around here, and then also working with our music partners. So go ahead and start asking Sony and Universal and all the companies that are located downtown, say, hey, we need you, we need your commitment now for September. We know that September's a long time away, but they're working on their budgets right now for 2025. You know, and some have already done. Yep. You know, so we will, you know, need to, you know, get on that, like, you know, right away. Yes. Yeah, and it's just the same sponsorship packet. Yep. I mean, you don't have to have your carnival partner, you know, pick now. We know it's going to cost at least $500,000. So let's go ahead and try to raise the $500,000, or at least get $500,000 of commitments in before the end of the year.
Yep.
And understanding that we won't fill that gap in a year either, right? So I think it would be great for us to work closer with finance, and if the gap is $500K, I'm just throwing a number, then, well, all right, this next year, let's get 150 resolved, and then the next year another 150, right? And then we only have 200 to solve for at the end, and I think that a lot of the ideas can fall to that. But if we have a specific target, we shouldn't be defining that just randomly and let's start for 150. It kind of has to come with part of your strategic planning, and we'd love to work on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, what was our advertising spend for this year, and what type of advertising did we use?
We spend right at $100,000 in traditional marketing. That's TV, billboards, print, radio. We're around about $25,000 in social media. Ultimately, moving forward, you know, the social media, especially when you're pushing hard ticket sales for concerts, that tends to be the avenue to go. But in traditional fair, trying to bring just, awareness to the, hey, come out the 10 days, it seems like traditional marketing, TV, radio, and billboards, still, of course, newspapers now have kind of just went away. So that's something we definitely don't go for. But we definitely do a few magazines, but ultimately that's the budget for the whole fair.
Do you have an idea where our billboards were placed?
Yes. 65 North, coming into Nashville, around Trinity Lane was one. One was up in Goodlettsville. One was around the Loop. I'm trying to think exactly because I get the years mixed up. But they show us the placements. More media will try to negotiate with Lamar and what's available. Those change year to year. We're looking at next year maybe going from the interstates to secondary roads with the smaller billboards, trying to go after the East Nashville, the local community of Nashville. It seemed like, the first 2 or 3 years we really wanted to get on the interstate and just try to get as much out there messaging as possible. But I think, we've talked about it in the office that I think, the neighborhoods, we really want the community, the Gallatin roads, the Nolensville roads, the Murfreesboro, Charlotte Avenue, all those roads with the smaller billboards next year instead of the interstates. Might put one on the Loop, or two, but ultimately go that route next year.
And then as far as the RFP process is concerned, how are you getting the word out about the RFP? I mean, has the RFP been announced, has been put out there yet?
It has. The International Fairs and Expos has a website that basically you can post there, and then of course you can see it there. And then of course we sent out notifications to probably 6 or 7 of the midway providers that we thought were kind of a good fit, suitable, or within our area. There are so many carnivals that are in, say, the central states, west, too far away. It just doesn't make sense for them to come all the way to Nashville for a fair. So you have to find the carnivals that are in our, area, the services.
Yes.
No, I think those are all really good ideas, and looking at our expenses and looking at growing revenue, and music certainly is something we can try to leverage. Just want to put one more plug in though. It's like talent budgets are like real things. They're really big, and we should just consider the opportunities of already having huge numbers of people on campus. Like that has to be part of the plan. Like it doesn't make sense for that not to be part of the plan, be it something Bob's doing or something Lindsay's doing. We've got to figure out a way to schedule that in, because that's like, that's gonna be huge numbers. So I just think we should do all those things, and we should use the existing giant events that will be here to just grease us on like a Thursday to get, and that could be incremental. That could be 50, 100K, like easy. So anyway, that's all I have.
One last thing, and on Anthony's question and I'm not in that industry, so pardon the ignorance up front.
No.
How are we measuring, and I know it's very hard from a marketing perspective, in which channels you're using to advertise it, right? But do we know how much we're spending, like per attendee? If we spend 100K, and is there a KPI that you guys use in the entertainment festival industry, whatever, to measure that? You guys are the professionals on that field.
Yeah, I mean, you could get like, like conversion rates, stuff like that. I mean, some people do that. This is a little more, at this level, it's probably more art, because, that's mostly in digital media. And so I don't know, Scott, do you have anything to add to that?
Do we survey attendance? Kind of like, how did you hear about the fair? Where are you from? Things like that. Are those helpful even?
Well, they are, and they can be. Ultimately, right now we've not surveyed. We'd mainly focus on trying to put, basically the event and try to grow the event. And as we do the surveys, and of course having kiosks, the iPads especially, survey are really a good thing to have. But, as far as we're capturing the emails where they buy online, of course, then that tells us, of course, our digital marketing that allows us to know who clicked where, all that stuff. Ultimately, in the fair industry, it's more about, the frequency, driving to work, hearing on the radio, see it on the billboard, because the ticket sales are not. It's just a different than a concert, where it's
not
a
direct indicative of that. Okay.
ultimately. So it's just a little bit different. Folks make their mind up, spur of the moment. Hey, let's go to the fair. They'll drive to the fair. If the line's too long, let's just go eat or go to Chuck E. Cheese. They don't. Some people do take advantage and buy their armbands and the discounts, and you try to drive those sales. But of course,
But I have a question.
Yeah.
Onto Diego's point though, but there are ticket sales that did happen online, and so you do
Yes.
have those email addresses.
Yes.
Are you able to send out a survey to those people?
Oh, we can. We can do
Okay.
that. Survey. We can definitely survey those. I was just talking about the general.
Right.
Because typically here on the grounds, when people just say come up to the gate, no advance sale, it's nice to get how those folks hear. But we can definitely do a survey and email out. That's not
Right. If you have 10,000 people that could potentially answer that, I mean, give them a
Yes.
free ticket for next year.
Exactly.
Fair, and if you get I'm just throwing ideas, and you can say no.
Chief was like, wait a minute, you want my
10,000 are
money?
not going to respond if you give them a ticket.
A free ride, not a free
If
ticket.
you get
A free ride ticket.
if you guys are in marketing, you know the amount of emails that won't be open, which is going to be 99.9%, right? So even if we get 300 responses, it would be
Yes.
very eye-opening,
Very.
because if you're spending over $100,000 in traditional media or around that, at least in my experience in other fields, that's a pretty hefty budget, which typically you're just shooting in the dark, right? And I think if you already did better and we can continue to optimize and professionalize what we're doing and be more and more strategic, I think there's a lot of great opportunities, because if the value is there, then just to be a little bit more like targeting more and more every year, it would be great to get potentially 10,000 answers if you give them the ticket. But that was just an idea, not a proposal.
Okay.
As an example.
And one reason that I asked about the billboards was because even though I had put on our family calendar that the fair was the 6th through the 15th,
Right.
my wife kept putting something on the calendar and inviting a bunch of people saying the 14th of August through the 16th. And I was like, this is wrong. What are you doing? And she's like, that is when the fair is. I said, look, how you going to tell me when the fair is? And I was just at a meeting. No, the fair is the 6th through 15th. So what she kept seeing when she would come home on Rosa Parks every day, they had a big billboard right there that said, the Tennessee State Fair in Lebanon that
Yes.
was August 14th through the 16th.
Yes.
So that's what she kept looking. I said, no, that's not us. We're the Nashville State Fair. So we're September 6th through the 15th. And we came on Hispanic Heritage Night, and it was packed. So I would say move that night to Saturday next year or something like that. Take it off of Sunday, because it was great.
One of the things, to Diego's point, Scott, do we get like a proof of performance or something from our media buy?
We do.
Maybe
We
share
do.
that
Yes.
so everybody can kind of see what that looks like, as far
do.
as you can see where the placements are.
Yes.
Like we got this many out-of-home spots, we got this many radio spots. That just might be some good information to educate ourselves.
We'll need to have a separate meeting so y'all can understand it.
All right. Are there any other questions?
No,
Comments?
thanks for answering all this.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Thank you for all your work.
No, thank you all. And I hate to leave. I have another meeting to go to.
Understood.
But thank you.
Understood. Thank you. Thanks.
I just want to thank Scott too. He's very humble and he always makes sure that he thanks others, but we really do need to thank him specifically for his leadership on the fair. So thank you, Scott.
So next we'll hear from Dirk. Yes. I forgot.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Commissioners and Director Womack, appreciate being with you this afternoon. And congratulations again on a successful Nashville Fair. I'm especially grateful that Laura and Scott offered tickets to the handful of residents that we had in the building at the time, and they were very grateful for that, as are we. So thanks for engaging them, and thanks for that collaboration. That's the type of community that we're hoping to see out of this endeavor that we're in together, and we're just so happy that it worked out and that the weather was good and everybody had a really, really good time. So thank you for that. So you may be wondering, where did this delicious coffee come from? I'm so glad you asked. So Barista Parlor opened in 445 Park Commons last Wednesday. This is our first retailer of several that will be opening in that building. It's a combination coffee shop and leasing office that's on the corner of the building closest to Geodis Park. And so for the time being, they'll be open from 7 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. As the building gets more full and as more demand comes from the neighborhood, they'll be switching to cocktails in the afternoon. So they'll have later opening hours, and they're getting their liquor license now in order to do that. So we're awfully excited for them. Andy Mama, who's the proprietor for Barista, has been a terrific partner of ours. So we really do encourage you to take all your coffee meetings on a going forward basis there, because it's the parking's great. It's a terrifically convenient location, and we're awfully excited to have them as the first retailer to open of several in the new project. So the building's almost done. We've accepted all but the bottom 2 floors 1 and 2 of the residential units from R.C. Matthews, and we'll be taking those on in inventory for leasing in the next couple of weeks. Other than that, the leasing is going according to schedule. We're about 20% leased in the building, so we have about 64 leases signed in the building. Half of those are market rate, half of those are affordable, so it's exact proportions that we anticipated, and our residents are really, really enjoying being in the building and being on campus and all the things that there are to do, largely thanks to your efforts to make it exciting and engaging for our residents. We're continuing to finish the project as we go. We've got some landscaping to do around the perimeter of the project, some bollards to go up at the main entrance. You may have noticed that the little circle area at the front door to the leasing office where the 3 trees are, that's not a cul-de-sac. So we're going to be putting up some bollards there to delineate that. Those are actually being installed tomorrow, and that will be part of the improvements for Fair Plaza as it goes down the hill to the east. That project will be substantially complete here in a couple weeks. I know David will get into that a little bit. We are waiting for some wooden detail features that go on top of the benches and the stairs that we believe are going to be showing up right before Christmas. So there's a little bit of a delay on those. So it'll be open to the public, but not 100% buttoned up until closer to the end of the year. So some supply chain stuff going on there. Speedway Alley, or now called Coliseum Way, is also substantially complete. And so some of those landscape, hardscape features are just getting finished up right now. But we're so pleased to see everything kind of coming together more or less on schedule. And it's going to be a really beautiful space at the front of the building. So look forward to more in subsequent updates. We continue to work on the retail leasing on the front where all the green plywood is. We've got about 40% of that subscribed right now, and as the fall goes on, we'll be making some additional announcements to kind of build some excitement in that area. So overall, we're very pleased with how it's going, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes, Anthony. Oh.
You can go first. First of all, next time I'm gonna need a voucher because I don't do coffee, so bring me a drink voucher next time. I appreciate 100%. That. And how is the affordable units? How are they going? Are they being leased yet, and if they have, how many have we leased?
Yes, sir. We've leased 32 affordable units out of the 120 that are available in the building. So those are going very well. The application process has gone pretty smooth here as of late, and we've garnered a tremendous interest in the building simply thanks to a lot of concerted effort with all the campus partners to get the word out to various community groups, and not only through this group, but also Stand Up Nashville and some other community partners. So the word is out, and people are now seeing how high quality the building really is. I know a couple of you have had a chance to tour it, and it's every bit a Class A building. So yeah, the affordable leasing is going very well.
And do you have, maybe not today, but next meeting, can you have a demographic breakdown of those people who have been afforded that leasing?
Demographics
as in race, ethnicity?
Fair housing doesn't allow us to collect that information. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, that's HUD regulations.
All right. Well, I know where they are, so I'm going to go there one day and
Okay.
Just watch people come out their door and see who they are.
Happy to
my
have
own survey. And last thing, speaking of the fair tickets, this may be a Bob question. Are any of the residents being given any vouchers for the All-American 400? Okay. All right. Good deal.
Can I ask a quick question about the affordable units also? Do you guys have any partnership or any way of advertising those with MMPS for Nashville teachers?
You know,
I think that would be a great thing to do. If you don't, can you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we can check into that. I'm not specifically sure about those two entities, but we can look into that.
I think
for
it
sure.
would be great, right? I mean, for PR for everybody, I think it looks great if we're housing teachers that can barely afford to live in Nashville in your building,
Yeah.
our building.
Yeah,
So that would be
100%.
great. That's just a recommendation. That is a proposal.
Right. Noted.
So Dirk, obviously this building's not wound down yet. You got a lot of work to do still on it, but do you have any timeline for when you guys are going to come with sort of your next phase plan? Not getting any specifics today, just kind of knowing. Do you have any sort of clarity in the timeline for the next sort of project you want to do?
Yeah, sure. Right now we're working in what we call pre-development, which is kind of conceptual design on what we call Block A, which I think is lot 10, 11? 10. There's a 3.4 acre site that's the rectangle over here across directly to the north of Geodis Park. Right now we're working with the city to kind of look at the adjacencies and access to that because our master plan didn't contemplate lanes connecting to Benton at the top of the hill. It was going to be some sort of overlook and the pedestrians would not be able to get through there. Now that we've seen how the campus is being used and how accessible the site is from that direction, from the Wedgwood-Houston neighborhood by and large, we'd like to reconsider that and make sure that we're providing as many access points for the community as possible and kind of handling some accessibility ADA issues that are associated with that. So that'll be the first step for us to kind of run that to ground and make sure that's copacetic with all the campus partners as well as the city and planning. That'll put us in a good place to be designing that new project into the new year.
Yes.
As Coliseum Way and Fair Plaza kind of wrap up, would you like me to arrange a tour for this group?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And then also speaking to what Diego mentioned, have you guys done a like a media walkthrough of the building?
We haven't done a media walkthrough or ribbon cutting just yet. We were really waiting to see when Fair Plaza was going to be done so we can kind of do a twofer a little bit.
Okay.
But now that, some of those wood features, like I mentioned, aren't going to be here until closer to the end of the year, we may be kind of stretching into the first quarter next year before we can kind of do a big thing. But to the extent that, that's something that we could do and it's something y'all want to do, we'd love to participate in that with you.
Okay. Yeah, because it's just talking with some people, they're like fascinated with the fact when I told them that I could not hear anything inside the building, and I showed them my videos from my walkthrough. When I was playing with the door with the race car, like now you hear, no you don't.
Right.
And so they thought that was fascinating. So they hadn't heard about it. So that could be a one way to reach people. And then the other thing is that we're tourism, right? We're in and maybe reaching out to some of the organizations that are working, that servers or some of the local entertainers maybe may be involved with because their income levels, they may be interested in in the building as well, especially if you tell them about the future art space, and that what that's all about. Because in talking to some of the owners, some of the small business owners, restaurants in particular, they say that, and I will tell them about the affordable housing piece that's over here. And they've been sending their staff over to take a look at it and hopefully applying. But that could be one way to help, some of our, restaurants, help with employees. And then as a state employee myself, I know a lot of state employees don't make a lot, and there may be a way to incentivize some state employees, who work downtown and may not be able to for they're living with roommates, some of the legislative aides and, at the state capitol and, and some of the junior staff. And so they're not able to necessarily afford to live, in a downtown area, but this is close enough to downtown. And they might see it as a benefit to live here as well.
Yeah. I love that idea because there's a huge tie-in with mobility and transit as well. I know these improvements on Nolensville are going to make a huge difference. And, the downtown core with the state, employee base just being a mile and a half away is really something.
Right.
And so that could be a really good synergy right there.
Yes. Sorry, Todd. Yes. Oh, that's it. Okay. All right. Thank you, Derek. Thank you so much. Thank you. As we go on with Bob next.
I want to thank everybody for letting me speak for a minute. And we had our race October 5th, the Cancer Awareness Night. Had a good night then. Again, as we talk about most of the meetings, we worked really hard on timing, and we got done at a good time, a good curfew. So we move on to our final race of the year. We have 2 practices left, and then we have the All-American 400, by far our largest race of the year. So it'll be the first weekend in November. I've given you the schedule for both all 3 days. And that'll be coming up, and then we'll wrap up the 2024 season. And we've been working with soccer really close on the schedules for 2025, and that'll be completed soon. So if there's any questions or anything.
Yes, Todd. Yes.
Thanks, Bob. Obviously, coming back next year, similar to Diego's question earlier for Scott, if there's like one thing, like we're not solving racing today, by the way. It's not on the agenda. We're not going to solve racing today. But if there's one thing for you next year that we can do, it's like, I really need 10 more parking spots, or I need this date, or, I need whatever. Like, what would be one thing that we can try to break through and solve for you? You don't have to answer right now, but if there's just like what's the number one thing for you for next year? Because I want to see us make some improvements. Like, you're doing a great job, but how can we make, that racing experience, like, perform even better than it is? So
Yep, I appreciate that. And Jasper and I have spoken. We're going to put a list together. I think one thing just right, today that I can't answer off the cuff is possibly our company and our people work with the Fair Board and the city and Metro and everything to get the word out better. Just as Scott was saying, I think it's just the word out that we have this family-friendly event happening 10 times a year here. And I think we want to get the word out that, we work on, make sure we do the outside areas really well. And I'd like for the communities here right in Nashville and close to maybe you could help us get the word spread a little bit better. So I think off real quick is that would be one major thing that I want to work on next year. Different communities in the area, and just like the fair does. So I think we can really take some good lessons of what Scott's done and make sure that we're reaching all the communities in the area.
And so I actually saw a great news story this morning on Fox 17 about the teenager that's racing.
Correct.
Here.
Yes.
And, so stories like that, I think like that, I stopped in my tracks. I was like, wait a minute, who? And, and it was a great story about the history of him racing here on the fairgrounds, here on the property, and is there any way we can get more stories like that?
Yeah, I think that's great, and I'm glad you caught that. He is a good example. He's came up through the ranks from our smaller quarter mile, and then he started with our pro late model. Now he's moved on to just for a little information, didn't see the story, moved on to our super division. Now he's literally moving on to NASCAR. So great feel-good story for the Nashville community, and we do have several others like that. That's the beauty of this place, and I know you've heard the stories about the kids and all that. It really is truth to that, and we probably need to spread that message better, and we'll lean on you guys maybe for ideas how to get that message out. But we have so many different divisions of race cars that they move up kind of in an age and economic transition, and this is what can happen is they can move on and go on to the race in NASCAR.
The Hall of Fame.
November 6th.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah, you put it on the calendar.
Do you have any presence at the fair? Like during the fair, were you guys doing any advertising?
We had
directly
cards
here?
and some presence. And I know Todd brought up, we did try to race for several years with Scott, and I think it's a good idea to discuss that. The thing that we did run into is our footprint takes a lot of footprint with the race car haulers and where they have to go and things like that. So it was quite an exercise to work that out. Not impossible, but I did want to bring that up, that I think it should always be brought to the forefront because we do have a good event to bring. Maybe we could make a smaller event than we've tried in the past, things of that nature. But yeah, we want to be tied to the fair as close as we can.
Nice, thanks.
Or even, I mean, Mississippi State Fair, I grew up going to Mississippi State Fair. There was a huge display of cars just in a, even if you don't do the race, which I think we need to figure that out. We got to figure, like, that's important. Not to beat the dead horse I've already been talking about, but, like, those big events are going to be so additive. But you're right, like, get with Scott. Let's figure out some co-marketing. I mean, this could be the same media buy if you're doing the events around the same time, and then we can make the dollars go twice as far. So I think it's great. I mean, I feel like auto racing fits right into the sort of vibes of the fair. So I think we should do more together.
Yeah, and the one thing that I can say that we really enjoy by doing our car racing versus some professional sports, that in your concept of a display, our drivers are very accessible, so we could do autographs from this kid that just moved up. And you really get surprised when you get the local schools or the local communities that come, that the kids want autographs from these drivers, and the adults want them too. So our drivers are very accessible and very willing to do that. So that's where we can really capitalize.
Let's get Scott to bring his car collection out here. I mean,
Right.
he would
There you
totally
go.
do it. The dude wants to show his cars off. He's awesome. Let's get him to do it.
So
And it
we'll
could
try
be
to work with Scott Jones and try to get a motorsports area next year during the fair.
And it could be a scalable type of event, because as we're sitting there talking, I'm thinking about, okay, when I was a Boy Scout, we did the Poundwood Derbies. We built the cars and raced them,
Right.
and stuff like that. And until you could figure out, because we're still going to have construction over the next, couple of years, and and stuff like that. So it may make it difficult, but if we, can come up with some kind of racing type of activity until we can get to that point, I think it'll be fun and create I'm thinking about the times that I was, built the cars with my dad, and brought them to the Boy Scout, and we raced them, and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
It's really endless things we can do, and that's again why I enjoy this business so much. We could do ride-alongs on the track. We could do a lot of really cool things. So we'll work with Laura and Scott on that much more.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hopefully, and I want to invite everybody to the All-American 400 one day. That'd be great to see you, and we will work with Dirk too. Thank you.
And last but not least, David.
Good evening, everybody. So what we have on Fair Park, so we just finished the entry out there on Nolensville, so that looks really good. Goes good with the signage. Kind of loving that. On Infrastructure Part 2, we got Windgrove and Coliseum Way back into resubmission for permitting. So that's going well. We're continuing our coordination with WEGO and NDOT on the MOUs and the contracts for that work. And then we have Fair Plaza and Coliseum Way. We've got those scheduled for the end of the month. I know Dirk had mentioned there are some pieces that are going to be coming in late, but the schedule is to kind of have that area all opened up here by the end of the month. So that's all looking really, really good, and we're really, really excited for Market Street and R.C. Matthews with what they've done up there. Some additional projects that have happened, and we got some going on. So we had the art sculpture, which we did the dedication last month. That turned out fabulous, in my opinion. Couldn't have been better right there with the fair, and we had great attendance by a lot of people. Lot 2, which is right over here by 50 Forward, we are settled on that. That's going to go in for permitting this week. So you'll see that starting to come to life here over the next 60, 90 days. We also have Lot 11, which is the larger, go ahead.
Commissioner Hartley had a look on his
Remind
face.
me what we're building in Lot 2. Remind me what we're building in Lot 2. Is
So
that where
lot-
we're building the retaining wall?
Yeah, so
Okay.
just a reminder, Lot 2 right now is very gravelly, and there's a lot of just like kind of fill in there. We're actually going to be maximizing that, flattening it out so we can use it for the fair in particular, and then also overflow parking if we need. But it is really an open space to have more event space adjacent to the expos.
Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No. And it'll be good with the retaining wall. That'll open things up there. So that kind of played in with the grade, and we also coordinated with Scott with any Fairgrounds events there. So we got that going. 2 projects that NDOT's working on, which is kind of nice when you think about the perimeter of the fairgrounds as we're starting to put definition in. So we have the Craighead Nolensville intersection right there. They just repaved that. They've also repaved a small section prior to that. In addition to that, I'm working with them, coordinating with them on what they're calling a Phase 4 sidewalk project, which will be the continuation of the sidewalk over there by the dog park, so that we'll have a continuous run of sidewalk all the way down Craighead. When you start thinking about this, we're going to bring in, we've got Fair Plaza Coliseum Way finishing up. What we were calling the continuation road previously is the extension of Coliseum Way, which is going to go out to Craighead. So here over the next 8-9 months, you're really going to see some definition over there on that side. And then when we add in the inboard station for WeGo that we're going to be doing out here at the Wind Grove, we're going to be there's a whole lot going on there. You're going to see a nice continuation of a border around the fairgrounds. So it's kind of exciting to see it develop. It's hard to understand it sometimes because it's coming in pieces, but we think it's just gonna be really, really good. On the budgets, we're good on all the budgets and all the invoicing. Everything's tracking well. We do a lot of coordination on that, so we don't see any issues there. That's all I have. Does anybody have anything? Questions, comments?
Got one. No, that's just more of a comment. Like, that's great to hear the hardscaping coming in around the edges. I just want to remind Laura that landscaping plan, like that's something that's still in my mind because we want to make sure we complement and take care of that hardscaping with the softscaping. So I'm looking for, subject to Jasper being cool with it, I think we're looking for, what's that sort of master plan for landscaping?
We did issue the PO since the extended maintenance agreement did go through council and was approved. So we've issued the PO, and so we've already kicked that off, and we've already had the contractor out to do another assessment, and so that is kicking off. At the same time, working on our overall plan with our partners.
Other questions? No.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So next on the agenda would be our executive director's report.
Okay, I just have a few things. We mentioned the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway Hall of Fame induction banquet is November 6th, so please RSVP if you haven't. I would love to have you attend. It is super fun, and we've got a great class of inductees. Also, the strategic plan survey went out. So Diego and I have been working along with a representative from the mayor's office, Mr. Clifton Pay, who has been really great at reviewing it. So we're in the midst of pushing out the survey. As you can imagine, we're going to rely heavily on our partners. Thank you, Lindsay, for that offer. I've sent it out to our neighborhood group to get it out to their individual neighborhood groups. I've also sent it to you guys. I hope that you can share it with your networks. The link to the survey is on our website. We're going to be pushing out it on social media. It's gone out to our flea market vendors because we have their emails captured. We also have sent it out to our event clients because we have their emails captured. We will utilize Scott's email list that we've captured through the fair. And then council is also going to be talking about it today and pushing it out to their committees. So all the council members, Councilmember Vo, I've contacted Vice Mayor Henderson and Councilmember Gadd, who chairs the Arts, Parks, and Libraries Committee. so that we can get the widest audience possible on the, so, and we've had to kind of pare down the survey. There was so many questions that we could have asked, but it was getting too long. It was upwards of about 16 questions, so we did have to pare it back a little bit. But the point of the survey and doing it up front prior to any board conversation about the strategic plan is to give you something to respond to hear what the communities, the survey respondents find, to communicate what their priorities are. And that way we can respond to that information and then use it as we craft our next 2-year strategic plan. Diego, do you have anything else from our discussions?
Nothing specific other than I also want to make sure that we are clear that this is not the only expected driver to any kind of decision or anything like that. It's just this additional information that we didn't have, that we would like to have. Like Laura mentioned, the survey, of course, is not as comprehensive as ideally it would be, but then it makes it not realistically respondable, right? So it might not be the only survey, right? Like we will also see what's the response rate that we get if we find ways of making it attractive to continue to get more data, more information, more feedback. That with all the sentiment that we may feel one way or another about different subjects, but the more we know about what constituents want, that hopefully makes us make better informed decisions. So, but yeah, it's a work in progress.
And then I just wanted to mention one thing. We're very proud of the neighborhood that we reside in Wedgwood, Houston. And I'm sure a lot of you have read that Smoke and Thighs closed. Unfortunately, I think you all know that the owner, Matthew Carney, was killed in a violent crime. And to hear that Smoke and Thighs, which has been such a great addition to our neighborhood, is now closed as of Sunday. Yeah, we just want to honor them and just remember their contribution to our neighborhood, because it's always hard to hear. We're getting so many new things here in Chestnut Hill, all of our surrounding neighborhoods, and so to hear that they closed was really sad. So, thank you, Smoke and Thighs.
All right, so next we'll have a finance report.
The financial information presented today is preliminary, and all revenues and expenses for September 2024 may not have been recorded to the ledgers as of October 14, 2024, when this report was created. Revenues through September 2024 are as follows. We have collected about $1.1 million. Expenses are around $1,038,200. Resulting in a net gain of $65,400. Depreciation expense has not posted to the ledgers yet. So overall, the total gain is $65,400. The next section is our annualized budget. It doesn't change. It's a snapshot or a summary of our projection. Again, I'd like to remind the board that we will be making changes to this next year as we learn and collect more data. So the variance for divisional fare will be considerably less as we will fine-tune our methodology of allocating admin cost. Revenue by division. Comparing the year-to-date budget to the year-to-date actuals, we have a deficit of about $85,900 for the flea market. Contributing factors include summer being one of our slow seasons. Rent relief ended May 2024, and there was inclement weather in September, which caused many cancellations. So there is about a 48% decrease in dealership participation from last year around this time. As a result, the flea market team will be meeting to strategize on ways to increase dealership participation. Corporate sales has a shortfall of about $40,000. However, overall, we project that there will be a surplus in corporate sales. For the fair, comparing year-to-date actuals to the budget, there's a surplus of $350,000 for 100. However, the fair had several rainy days, so we anticipate there being a shortfall in revenue of about $120,000. Contracts has a deficit of $43,300. Our major revenue source for contracts is the ground lease, which is $200,000, and we will not be collecting those funds until January 1st, 2025. For expenses, overall, we're within budget. However, corporate sales is slightly over budget due to some payroll expenses, specifically overtime. However, I will be investigating to make sure that the overtime was properly allocated, that they were not given more expense in overtime for the fair than they should have. And so the last section is the gain and loss. So essentially, for me, this is a very important section because it's telling me what the actual revenue is versus the actual expenses and what the variances are compared to the annualized budget, which is just a projection. I also would like to inform the board that as of October 14th, our property tax proration is $109,300. On the agent report, we have $26,200 in outstanding invoices. However, all of the promoters have been contacted and invoiced, and I believe on your report you have the comments from those promoters regarding payment. Are there any questions?
Thanks for adding that comment section as well.
So yes, I had a question. So for rent relief ended in May of 2024. How many persons or vendors who are receiving rent relief are no longer participating in the flea market?
I will have to get you that information.
And then I think you mentioned cancellations. There were some people who canceled because of the rain. What is our cancellation process or procedures? Is it, do they have, when I make a hotel reservation, I have to, there's different guidelines. So what do we do?
I will defer to Director Romack.
Yeah, we're going to be reviewing that with Ryan. He is he's taking a well-deserved vacation this week. I think because Helene was projected well in advance of the market, that just a lot of people didn't book. We didn't so it's not just like booked and then canceled. It is anticipating return that didn't because of the weather. So we have a booking window of about 2 weeks. For this month, we made it 3 weeks just to give people an extra chance to register. But generally, when people book and then no show, they forfeit their registration.
Okay, so the process. So people decide each month they're going to come. They
That's
don't
correct.
sign a contract for a year or for 6 months, or
Right.
they don't say that they're going to participate in X amount. Is there any way we can take? I mean, has there been any thought to that, saying that a person can pay for 3 months at a time or 6 months or?
So, couple things. There is a benefit of placement and priority when you're considered a permanent vendor and you achieve permanent vendor status due to your attendance. So if you do not come a certain amount of months, then you forfeit some of the perks that you get, which is, again, you get your preferred location in the building or out in the shed. So there are perks to that. each month, another tool that they've been trying to use to help project attendance for future markets is they're actually putting out cards that they give to each vendor at the market asking their intent for the next month's market so that we can kind of plan in advance. I think what we're seeing too, and we'll kind of drill into this more for maybe the next board meeting, is that because of rent relief, we got a lot of people who just signed up to try it out, but I'm seeing a lot less like long-term commitment with vendors. I think in what I've seen 5 years ago, you'd have the same people, the same core block of people coming month after month after month, and the vendor base is changing a little bit. While we still have our diehard vendors who are here every month, we have a little bit more of a transient vendor population now than we did 5 years ago. So we kind of need to change a little bit, and this is one of the strategies we're going to discuss, is how do you reach out to those people, number one, to enter into the market, but then what do we need to do to get them to commit long-term? I think that is some information that we're missing, and how to make it more attractive to them on a long-term basis, to your point.
Yeah, so I know during the rent relief program, I'd asked if we do a survey and survey the people who are receiving rent relief, on if the rent relief was to stop, would you still consider coming? And so, and I know that was one of the questions that was in the survey, and so I can't remember the response, but if we can take a look back at that survey, because I think, that should have given us a guess. I don't know if they answered it, truthfully or not, or honestly or not, but could that have been some kind of indication to say, hey, when the rent relief stop, we're going to have 20% of our people no longer coming. No longer, we were going to lose 20% of our vendors because they've already told us that they were not going to participate. And then we could come up with a strategy to say, okay, well, come April, you said May, ended in May. In June, we may need to think about a new strategy on advertising, because we were going to lose. We were going to have 20. We already knew we were going to have at least 20% less.
So we did do that survey, and it was about 87% who took the survey indicated that they would return regardless of rent relief. Clearly, we didn't see that. However, it also is a reflection of how many people responded to the survey, because we did targeted communications with our entire vendor base to fill out the survey, but the response rate was very, very low. So even though it was 87%, it was a very small group of people that responded. So I don't think it was necessarily indicative of the overall vendor base.
But I think the numbers sort of correlate, though. If you say 87%, so I took a guess at 20%, but that tells you right there, if 80% is so. Are we looking at that? And you may find that out when you look at the numbers. It still may match. If we're losing revenue, we're losing people because of rent relief, so it may be at 13%. It could have told us. No matter how many people responded, that sounded about right. And looking at the numbers, just taking a glance at it, it looks about the amount, that it could be once you figure it all out. Yeah, but I'll be curious to see. Yes, Todd, yeah.
Just building on that, I think it's a good line of something to look into. I agree with all that, Jasper. When we did the revenue projection for the flea market, did you factor in the end of rent relief in our revenue projection? And like what we thought the attrition rate would be?
We did.
Okay, good. So then we're still going to be looking at the budgeted number, which is good. And then you said in your report, I didn't hear it, I think it went to what Jasper was asking about. Did you say did you give a statistic for the year-over-year decrease in dealers at the flea market? Did I hear that? Like a 40%? Did I hear that?
Yes, you heard 48% from last year around this time.
So we're down 48% year over year.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you.
Yes, I don't know if we've asked for this before, but events outside of the flea market that we have in these facilities, could we have like a listing of, let's say, 21, 22, and 23 fiscal years, and then compare to what we have upcoming this year to see how many new events are we getting, or if we're just cookie cutter and just keeping the same events happening each year. And then and also if we can put what the monetary amount for each event is, so we can see what we're working with this facility.
So you want fiscal year 21
That'd be 21.
through current.
Yeah, so that gives us a 3-year breakdown plus what's upcoming this year.
Can I adjust that because of COVID?
Yeah,
21 is
gonna
a
be-
really tough year. So
Okay. All right, we'll take 21, 22 off and go 22. Fiscal year 22 would be 22, 23, and then 23, 24, and then plus what we have upcoming this year.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Kind of like, I think understanding the attrition and whatnot, kind of like the expected loss there is great, but can we discuss a little bit what are the plans to actually bring more vendors? Right, like one thing is to prevent the wound, but also what are we doing to improve? What's the improvement plan, right? Not only the defense, but how are we playing offense here?
yes, we've got a meeting already set up in 2 weeks to discuss that strategy. Yes.
So next board meeting, can we hear a little bit about that? Thank you.
Yes, one other question, apart from the flea market, you said our property tax proration about $100K. So that's the diversion of property tax revenue that we can use for capital improvements. Am I
Yes.
understanding that correctly? So that's just in an account now?
Yes.
And it'll just build until and do we have the authority to use that as long as it's for a capital purpose
Yes.
I'm assuming on the, kind of like trade it to like MCC or something, right? We have to use it on the,
Yes.
okay. You started thinking about it? I can't remember if I asked you this, but you were started
No, we
thinking about
have, and it's just something that we need. Clearly I want to build it up a little bit. I don't want to spend it as we earn it, because we, because we have to balance some immediate capital needs with saving it, knowing that we're going to need a new roof at some point, and we're going to need just some bigger preventative maintenance projects. So it's just a really good balance. So one of the things that we're looking at is doing a capital asset management plan for the next 3 to 5 years, so that we get a better idea, and I can inform you guys of the recommendations for facility improvements in that camp. And then we can make informed decisions about how do we want to use that money. I think that is a really excellent discussion that we need to have at board level, to say, how are we going to use this money? Because it is anticipated to be a large fund at some point, so we need to be prepared for how we're going to spend it.
Can we make sure to, or at least I propose that we think about it not only from a maintenance perspective and state of good repair and all that, but also let's think as a business a little bit and say, how can we spend capital and things that are going to create more revenue? Again, we have a revenue shortfall that we need to fix. So I think that's something that at least I will bring it up, and every time that we discuss anything, say, well, how is this going to help us make more money, right? Which sometimes it just helps you spend less money in some maintenance expenses, right? But to think more of it as a business, because we have a business problem to solve. So however we can be helpful, I can be helpful in discussing that part specifically. I think it would be great to have always a justification on we're spending this money this way, and what is the productivity of said investment. Sometimes it's going to be zero, but ideally we're investing in things that will produce new dollars.
Good point. Yep. Any other discussion about that? No, I think we're good. Thank you, Satrice. Thank you. Next is the operations report. Do we have operations?
Since Scott did his, I don't have anything further.
All right, personnel subcommittee.
All right, I'll go since I'm the chair of the personnel subcommittee. Anthony and I met for the personnel subcommittee. There's a report in your packet that I will not read, but it is in there. Here's the findings, or this is what we recommend. I will need some help from Laura/legal on if we actually have to vote on any of this or what the plan is. But here's the general report from the personnel committee. Anthony, I'll let you chime in after if there's anything you want to add.
With Christie's absence, within the, yeah,
Is it in
with
there?
no, I think with Christie's absence, I failed to put that in, but if you could go over it verbally, that would be fantastic.
Maybe she just put it in mine so I could read it, but we'll make sure to distribute this, and I'm about to go over it. Jasper, here you go. You can have this copy. I don't need it. So here's what we recommend to the full board as the personnel subcommittee. First, we think we should have a general policy to follow the Fair Board bylaws and Metro HR rules. So there's existing bylaws and Metro HR rules that cover personnel related items. So we suggest obviously to follow those rather than create a bunch of new rules. Second, we talked about the executive director review process, which is there's a process in the bylaws to have a review. So we just wanted to add a schedule to help keep that on schedule. First, executive director to provide draft goals for the upcoming year to our commission here by March. So that'd be Laura providing it to us for March to then have some time to have feedback. Then we recommend the chair to try to do the executive director performance review for the prior year and review those goals from Laura by April. If it's not feasible to schedule it by April, then the vice chair will do the review by the end of April. So hopefully between those two processes, we'll have the performance review for the executive director done by the end of April. Then at the May Fair Board meeting, the commission will review the completed performance review, which there's an HR form for that, and report at the May meeting. So then hopefully we'll have Laura's process done. Third thing, so that's one, general policies follow the HR policies of Metro. Two, executive director process we just talked about. Three, staff process. We reviewed the existing staff review process that Laura presented to the personnel subcommittee, and the personnel subcommittee supports the existing staff review process, which again is the general Metro HR process. And additionally, the personnel subcommittee supports the updates to the personnel handbook that Laura distributed before this meeting, which you should have in your packet. We went through them and think they're all good ideas. Number 4, the personnel committee process. We don't think we need to meet every month, and we suggest we just have a meeting on an ad hoc basis as issues come up. So in summary, we support following the general policies of Metro HR. 2, we talked about the executive director process and the schedule for that. 3, we talked about the staff process and handbook. And then 4, the processes of the personnel subcommittee. So that's the report. Commissioner Owens, anything to add to that?
No, except that we had guests that were talking about things outside of personnel.
Yes, that is correct. We had 3 public comments. People came, and we allowed them to talk. They wanted to talk about, surprise, surprise, they want to talk about the racetrack. So they talked about the racetrack, and we listened to them. So I'll defer to how we want to handle this. Jasper, I mean, I can move for the full committee or full commission to accept the recommendations, or however you'd like to proceed.
Well, I think the process is we accept a report, and then we look at the and then look at the recommendations. Because I would have a question, because in speaking to, I don't know if you had any conversations with Metro HR, those policies that are online are not necessarily HR policies; they're recommendations. And so we still, and so as far as a form, that form is a generic form, and they recommend that we actually have our own, that's outlined. So if we're gonna follow, the recommended process, we still have to say the Fairgrounds would do X, Y, and Z and handle X, Y, and Z, that type of thing. So those are just generic forms. And again, that was my conversation with the director of HR, with Metro in going through this process. But I appreciate your work, because that was my concern about the timeline, is because I was getting it which is why I said it was, because I was getting it at the last minute. I mean, I prefer April. Yes, we need time so that we can think about it and we can talk about it and, and all of that, we can go through that process. So I appreciate, that recommendation. I totally agree with that. And so, I mean, I agree with all of it, but I would say that I would urge us to come up. I like the setting of goals because that was the one thing that we did not have, before. It was like the goals, like what are we grading on? And that was my concern is that, and we can't base it off of opinion. I can't say that, it just can't base it off of opinion. And so to have something there, and have something, concrete is what I was looking for. So thank you for addressing that, as well, so that we can have benchmarks. So if we're saying that the goal of the director is to increase revenue by 40%, next year, we should be able to grade on that. If we get the budget point and we don't meet that, then we need to try to figure out why we didn't get that 40%, why, how to come up with that, number one, the 40%, but, I just do that number out.
Only 40?
I just do that number out my head. But,
Why not?
But,
It's 60%. Let's make it 60.
Yeah, but how do we get there? And then, how do we get the, why do we choose 40%? And then, why we were not able to make that, and that type of thing. So in order for us to have that informed discussion, we need to have that information. Yes.
I think once we start getting into more of the details of the methodology or the process for actual performance review, the same way that we use a lot of services from Metro to inform a lot of what we do, Clifton, him and his team can also help providing some, not more than a loose recommendation or like an open, like we can ask them to help us define a process, right? And that is part of the job. I know because that was my job. So they should be able to help with that. And inherently, it will be something that is somewhat standardized across Metro, right? So and then HR can have an opinion on what they're offering, whatnot. I think it needs to be, to your point, I really like what the report has, that we want to stay as close to Metro everything as possible. Like it needs to be 99% overlapping, right? We cannot come up with our own rules and whatnot because everyone here is a Metro employee, right? So we need to treat it as such. So I like that part of the report. I would like to accept it.
Yeah, yes.
Just one thing that we talked about also together, so in the Metro form, page 2 is standard for every single Metro employee, their core competencies. The first page is job responsibilities. My job description was pretty general and extremely high level and really didn't reflect, I felt like,
right, it doesn't.
Executive leadership. So we have that set now. But the one other thing that we've discussed and that we kind of put in the timeline is not only will I submit my goals to you, but if you have any goals that you would like to add for a conversation and we can kind of maybe, give and take on those a little bit, then that'll be an interactive conversation that we have in May or April, or March or April, through that process. And I'll also give you guys a chance to add to my goals from a board level. So we did discuss that as well.
I like this. I like the report. So I appreciate you taking the time, to do this. It was very, very, very informative. So thank you.
Is there any? We're gonna accept the report?
Yes.
Then what else we need to do?
Yep. So we can I'll entertain a motion to accept the report from the committee.
I proposed it. Yes. Sorry. What's the right language for that? I forgot. Sorry. I propose that we accept the report.
Second.
Along with the recommendations of the committee.
Second.
Is it moved and properly second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. No opposition? No. We're missing somebody, but no. Silent person, the invisible person.
And Jasper, I'll just say, like we said, we don't think we need to meet immediately, but obviously as an issue comes up, you call for it, or we'll say, hey, we should meet, and we'll just schedule a meeting whenever we need it later this year.
Oh, that's fine. That's absolutely, yep. Perfect. That's cool. Yep. Next, I guess in the old business, no? New business, MOU with Metro Transit Authority for the construction of an inbound transit stop on Nolensville Pike.
So this is the final version of the MOU with transit. And what essentially this documents is, in order to make the process of constructing the inbound transit stop on Nolensville Pike as efficient as possible and save money, we are going to fund the initial construction of that transit stop, and MTA is going to reimburse us for the costs associated with that. It does, by Metro process, we need an MOU to establish that relationship and then set the bar. A couple months ago, we talked about the possibility of this having to go to Metro Council. It does not, because it doesn't reach the $500,000 threshold that would require it to be approved by Metro Council. So we're just under that. The design has changed a little bit. We thought we were going to have to do a lot more work on Nolensville Pike because of the floodway that is, runs right over Nolensville Pike through our property and then onto private property across the street. So we found a way to avoid that disruptive work on Nolensville Pike, but still provide a safe transit stop, and then we'll signalize again Nolensville Pike at Windgrove. So this just memorializes that. MTA board meets on the 24th of this month, and they will also be considering this. So this won't be effective until MTA board authorizes it at their next meeting.
So I have a question. So where's the money coming from?
It is already budgeted in our capital infrastructure account.
Okay. So and that actually brings me to another question. We don't see that. We don't get that report, do we? We got that. It's the color.
Yes,
one?
you do. And this is
Oh, that's the
the
one from
infrastructure
Ed?
part
Okay.
2 funding that is in your packet on.
Oh, I see it right here.
Yep, there you go.
So then my question is, so they're going to reimburse us if we pay the money and we pay the money and they're going to reimburse us. Like, what are we going to do with the money that they reimburse us?
More projects.
Okay.
Yes.
Just like our typical capital
Yes.
things that we already planned, right? This
Correct.
is just
So we've, the phase 2 infrastructure, this money is also going to be used to do Coliseum Way from the 445 Park Commons parking garage all the way to Craighead. That is a much pricier project because we have to put in the bridge and widen the road. So the rest of the infrastructure part 2 is going to be funding that project
our
as
capital
well.
plan doesn't change. They're just
Correct.
literally borrowing the money,
Yes.
and then they're
There's
paying
a
it back,
lot
so we
of
can continue
yeah.
our plan as previously
Yes.
stated.
There's a lot of efficiency and cost savings by us keeping it within our capital project
Right.
and just having them, instead of them having to go out and procure their own services for this transit stop.
As long as we get paid back,
Right.
on time.
Yes, that's
As long as
the
that doesn't
key.
delay other
That's the key to this, is that we get our money back.
Right.
Because that's what I was wondering. I was like, because if something happens, like, what will be in jeopardy? Like, what, so what we will have to not do or what we will not be able to do. Yes, Todd. Yes.
I was just going to ask, thank you for pointing that out, that obviously we have the capital improvement plans, but the property tax set aside, that's probably a different capital account. Could you just include that as like a running figure on your roll-up somewhere, just so we're aware of what it is? It's on your list already.
So we've had some discussions. So I guess I'll entertain a motion for acceptance of this MOU.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor? Please signify by saying aye.
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 And aye. So this is unanimously passed. Is there any other business before us? Any other new business? Any other discussion?
I just have one,
Yes.
and I think more for next, like put it on the agenda for next month, because it'll take a longer discussion than today. But Can we just have a discussion next month about the time of our meetings? Because we talked a little bit at our personal subcommittee about mornings. So maybe we could have that discussion not right now. Let's have it next month. Everybody has strong feelings. We're going to have it next month, not right now.
This is Saturdays. All right, thank you. Yeah, we did discuss that. We did have a slight discussion about that before. I think you brought it up before. Yeah. So, all right, I'm all for entertaining a new meeting time. So, any other further discussion?
Also,
Yes.
with us not being able to have conversation outside this meeting, if we hear some scuttlebutt in town or anywhere about, how do we get that on the agenda? Or is this the time to bring it up? Talk to you? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and it's like we can have discussions. We can talk about anything any business that could potentially come before us.
Well,
Any vote. So you saying it could
this
potentially
could,
come?
yeah, based off what I heard, it could come before us.
Well, I'm
so
curious.
I
I want to know.
So I need to.
Right. I want to know now.
I need to let Laura know, and then she'll decide what you want to do with it.
Good idea.
All
Let's
right.
talk about it right now. Is it that important?
Yeah, I'll wait since she said be cautious. We'll wait.
Yes.
You also need to wait till it's on the agenda so there's public notice of the discussion.
That's why I was going for. How do we get it on the agenda? Like if I hear something, how do we get it on the agenda?
Yes, speak with the director
Okay. All right.
or legal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Hear no further discussion? All right. Just the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And seconded.
All right. Well, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Please vote.
Aye.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.